Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel for another video. Today we're going to go ahead and be working on my 2001 Ram 3500. Once again, we're still in the process of eliminating oil leaks. Right now the big issue that we got to take care of is the front and rear main seals. So this video is going to be on the front main. Probably the next video would be on the rear main. So recently, if you guys have been tracking on the channel, I went ahead and replaced billet tappet cover, did a couple other things. I had to go ahead and redo that. I'm going to throw that footage in real quick. I want to go ahead and give an update on the billet tappet cover. So this is all. Really didn't want to make this video because I'm not doing any how-tos or anything, but it's definitely showing my screw up. But there's a couple of good lessons to be learned here. So I went to the racetrack the other day, and while we were towing, pretty much went through a full quart of oil in about 100 miles or so, maybe a little less. And I had a couple of issues. So the VP44 was leaking oil out of this seal, and it wasn't previously. And then all along the bottom here there's been an oil leak going on. There's even enough to where some of it was leaking from the top, which was of the tappet cover. So essentially what happened was the VP44 bracket was pressing against the tappet cover right here. As you can see, it made a nice little indent, but as a result, while it was getting pressed in there, it didn't let it seal flush against here. It was at a slight cockeyed angle, and it was enough to let oil out. So definitely trim the VP44 bracket cover. I'll show you what I'm doing with that in a minute. And then the other thing is I went ahead and got two plugs. So the VP44 trucks have a normal vent tube. You just saw if you watched last video, I just put a catch can on my vent. And these are not required for mine. If you're making big power, sure, get some extra 1 or 3/4 inch lines and run a thing up so you can go ahead and have a catch can on those too or something. I don't know. But there are two small trickles of oil coming out of both of these. I already cleaned the cover since. So I went ahead and grabs two brass plugs. This is aluminum, you don't want to use steel. Hopefully brass won't be an issue, but a 3/4 inch thread pitch fit perfectly inside a regular plumbing section. So I'm plugging up these two holes. And the last issue was just me being dumb. I thought I had tightened these things down enough, all these bolts, and I had these are a 6mm Allen key or Allen head, and I had a standard size, whatever the equivalent was, and it was just a little bit too small. So when I tightened these, I tightened it until the Allen key slipped basically and just made a full rotation. I couldn't get any tighter, and that is not tight enough. It just torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. That's the torque spec. So I'm going to be torquing every single one of these down to 18 foot-pounds, and I went ahead and torqued one just to see, and it was definitely still loose. So very disappointing. I was just trying to take a shortcut basically, and I didn't want to go out and get the right tools for this. But as you can see, she's opened up again. So definitely a real pain in the butt job. However, hopefully this time I'm going to really make sure I dot my P's and Q's and do this right, because definitely not fun. So without further ado, let's keep working. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing back together. So I just saw basically I had to get it redone. When I got back, still noticed it was leaking oil. So everything on top of the oil pan basically has been resealed. I thought that was the issue because I could see it dripping down in the back corner over there. Well, it's not dripping down anymore, and I'm still getting quite a bit of oil droplets down out of the bottom. It's got to be the rear main, looking at the location. I didn't quite understand the way the truck was set up, but we'll get into that in the rear main video. For right now, we're doing the front just because I have easy access, or I have the part already, and it doesn't require lift or anything crazy, so we're gonna knock out the front main today. All right, so onto the truck, as you can see, right up in here. So I went ahead and added the catch can last video that you guys saw. This guy right here has been working well to keep this thing from leaking anything, but there is still oil, like fresh oil on there. And if you look up in there, you can see that fresh drop of oil on there totally coming out of the front main. So this is nowhere near as bad as the rear main seal leak, but because I have the part and I have the time, I'm going to go ahead and knock it out now, and then we'll go ahead and work on the rear later. But yeah, you can see all that fresh oil patch right there. That's yeah, definitely coming out pretty steady at this point. Didn't used to be this bad, but it's gotten a lot worse over the past couple of months. So time to stop wasting time. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on this thing. Kind of disappointed I got to pull off my catch can zip tie right there, but not a big deal. So we're gonna go ahead and get this project started. Should be not too bad. I do also have an oil pan seal that I ordered. However, I'm going to try and hold off on doing that if I can, just because it needs to have the motor lifted up. I don't know. We'll see if I want to do it or not. At the moment, I'm not really super crazy about it. It might not be bad. who knows? We'll see. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so place I'm gonna start is with the fan clutch. Went in and rented an AutoZone tool because I don't have one of these yet. And hopefully we can get this sucker out. But that seems like the most challenging place to get removed. So that's where I'm gonna start. Now, they're kind of a cool little device, but the idea is you're able to just click it around two of the bolts in the just to hold it steady so you can get your bigger wrench around here, which they have an actual tool for this, but I'm just using the Fat Boy. And the idea is to try and get it off. Now you can also remove the water or the pulley cover bolts or whatever. I'm just not in the mood to try and deal with that at the moment. Seen some people try that. I guess it works. Just not what I want to do right now. There we go. All right. So, for those of you curious, pull this way, it'll come off. And then after that, just spin it off. So, the reason you're taking this guy off is because you got to remove the whole shroud assembly, basically. And this shroud is what's coming out next. Now, I'm not an expert on this by any means. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and that's where I'm going with this. So, we'll see what happens. Sick. Oh, there she comes. So, that's our fan. I don't want to drain the cooling system, so I'm leaving that intact. Yeah. Totally missing two bolts right here. Good grief. We'll go to AutoZone and grab some more that fit that thing. Sick. I love this crap. Fan clutch is out. There you go. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and remove this shroud. It's the next thing. So we got to pop off this guy. They're saying that allegedly you can pop out and up. And allegedly this thing just needs to pop out and you can feel it slide up. Try and get a grip on here real quick. There's your coolant reservoir. There we go. So you just pull straight up, coolant reservoir comes off, and there you have it. These two already getting greasy. Love it. Fan shroud has two 10s right here and here. I don't see any more at the moment. Let's go ahead and get this off next. This is the washer fluid reservoir. Allegedly it should be the same way. Okay, so there's a little ball thing in here. Gotta get out of the way. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll show you once I get it up and out of the way. All right, that should be good enough. There we go. Up. Don't want to double tap your battery, but I believe that's up and out. We'll find out when we get the shroud undone. So next up, let's grab these 10 mils out of here. I'm trying to work fast today, guys, because I really do not. I'm not honestly in the mood to do this. I got other stuff to do today, so see how long this takes. One, next one. Looks like we might be cracking the cooling system open after all, in all honesty. Not really my first choice, fun, but I got more coolant. Do what we gotta do. All right, just gonna angle this guy up, out of the way, over there for now. Then we can get this thing out of here. There we go. So all right, so from here, looks like I'll be able to get this two 10 mils. All right, one out there, and we got one more below it. All right, so that's number 2 right there. All right, so 2 10 mils out of the way. Just gotta make sure this thing gets unhooked all the way. There we go. Now. All right, got the tube hooked out of the way over there. Okay. Honestly, we can just pop this nipple off. Get this guy totally out of the way. Okay, that'll make life a lot easier. No, it's currently my annoyance is the stupid washer reservoir. It's really getting in the way here. Okay, there we go, guys. She's out like so. Thing's definitely pretty greasy. Put this in the bed of the truck for now. Come back to it later. Next up, we can go ahead and remove this guy. Just let that hang out there. It's my catch can. You can go check the video if you want to see how that gets installed. Put a card to it. Great, definitely gonna have to fix that. Whoops. Next up, let's go ahead and pop off our, yeah, we can go ahead and pop off the belt next. We'll go ahead and do that guy next. Get our belt off next. And then I don't have to worry about that routing or anything because there's a nice little handy diagram right here. We'll come back to that later. So let's go ahead and stick that over there for now. So far, compared to everything else done on this truck, has actually been so far so good. So next up, gotta go ahead and pop off this whole guy right here because that blocks part of this. So it's a couple of 10 mils. And this last one in here is actually behind that pulley. So it's kind of a frustrating fit. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second once we get this off. So let's see. On the bright side, these things are not like super rusted on here or anything, so that's nice. Definitely making life pretty easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab, all right, so this is my 10 mil, because these aren't on super tight. Ooh, let's see now, come on. The idea is to try and get this without hurting anything in terms of like rounding out the bolt or anything. If you're feeling fun, you can always trim your tool with a grinder. All right, took our tool with the grinder. Now you can see it's a little bit. Now you can see it's a little bit skinnier, and she fits in there. Oop, just about. Come on, there we go. Ah, good grief. All right. Ah, man, that thing was tight, but. And then we're just gonna start working it out that way. The whole thing will come out as an assembly. I don't know if you can just take off the pulley bolts, if that'll work. Didn't really think about it, in all honesty. This is the way I watched the dude do it in the video I saw. So that's why I'm doing it this way. All right, so as you can see, there's actually nothing there. Yeah, okay, so we didn't need to take that thing off anyway, because this would have covered up part of that front cover. So this is the water pump pulley, I guess, or water fan pulley rather. I guess the water pump must be maybe in there. I have no idea. No idea where the water pump is on this thing, but good enough for now. Generally a good idea when you take stuff like this, pop the bolts back in. These are all the same size, doesn't really matter where it goes. And then go ahead and set your part off to the side. All right, so now that that's off, next thing we gotta do is go ahead and get our balancer bolts off. So it's the next day out here, and ran across an interesting video by someone called Pure Panorama. And he was able to get these suckers off by using a ratchet strap around the crank. And I think that's a little bit safer than trying to do this VP44 bolt. And it's actually worked. Like, holy cow. So I ordered that tool with express shipping. It was like almost $100, which is kind of insane. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Might still need it for the rear main, so I'm not planning on returning it just yet. But yeah, if you're looking for an easy way to do it, ratchet strap around this thing. So the way I did it is I hooked it onto the front sway bar down there, and then wrapped it around the crank a bunch and ratcheted it as hard as I could against the frame. And looks like it worked. So I'm gonna go ahead and, yeah, there's one. Let me go down here real quick and show what it looks like. Yeah, that's pretty much it right there on the bottom side. And then that water is just dripping off because my strap got wet. That's how tight it is. Honestly though, cannot believe that actually worked. So if you got an auto, you're trying to do this, it's a good way to do it. Let me go ahead and get the rest of these out, and then I'll come back to you once it's time to actually take the crank off. I got our 4 bolts out, they're right there. So I gotta go ahead and undo this ratchet strap, and then we should be able to start sliding that harmonic balancer off. I realized I just said crank a bunch of times in the last clip. Definitely a harmonic balancer. You're not taking the crank out. I'm actually still really shocked that worked. It's awesome. Yes, let's go ahead and pop this guy out real quick. I want to show you how I had it wrapped up in here. But I had a little extra wide strap, so I just kind of folded it in half so it didn't get stuck. Be careful it doesn't get stuck behind the balancer, because that would be a bad day. Yeah. So that's off. Let's see about getting this guy off. Oh, easy day. Check it out. Wiggle, 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 and she comes right off. Heck yeah. There you go. So, something to check if, this balancer must have been replaced for having how many miles it has on it. It's in good shape. No cracked rubber around here. And then, same thing on this side. It looks in pretty decent shape. I don't see any issues. So, I'll probably take a power wash to this and just clean it up a little bit. But, so next up, we got to go ahead and pop off all these bolts on here are all, ooh, really thought they're going to be a 10. These are a 10. Looks like this other size is an 11. All right. Just go ahead and pop all these guys off real quick, and then should be able to get this front cover off. Definitely going pretty smooth now that that's off, which is awesome. So I went ahead and also purchased a front crank saver piece. It's not the Cummins one. It's one from, I believe it's Fel Pro. I gotta double check exactly what seal I ordered. Fel Pro or Male, one of the two. But it is their crank saver stud, basically. Not stud. Thing with the GT500. It is the crank. What's what I'm thinking of? Crank's wear sleeve. So what happens is, and this happens with any truck, as you're going around, there we go. So as seals sit on the crank and it's rotating, you're going to eventually get some kind of wear in it. You saw the one when if you watched the rear differential video, where I went ahead and replaced the seal on that thing, there's a nice little groove cut into it from basically just wear and tear. So it is what it is. I'm going to mark these starting with that one, and we're just going to go ahead and go around the line. Basically, is what my plan is. So start it here, and then just go around, and then install it in the same order so I know exactly where these all come from. But like I was saying, well, I'll show you when I get this thing off. Let's go ahead and zip through these real quick. All right, so that's all the bolts out. I'm just going to pop the actual timing cover off. I should be able to get it just I don't like that. Alrighty, there we go. Yeah, this guy is, oof. Literally feels like hard plastic. It's definitely not super steely anymore. Set that over here for now. And this is the crank I'm talking about. So there's a little bit of a groove in there. It's not terrible, but it's definitely felt on the finger. That's all smooth, and you can feel a groove right in here. So glad I got the wear sleeve. That'll basically prolong the life of the crank. And I'm gonna figure out how to get that thing installed as well. I'm not entirely sure exactly what I'm gonna do on that just yet, but we're gonna figure it out, and we're good to go. It's not the Cummins one, like I said, but yeah, check out all this gunked up oil all around here. Definitely been leaking, so glad we're finally taking care of the front main at least. So I get this thing down to the workshop, and we're gonna clean it up and then figure out how to go ahead and get this seal out, new one installed, wear sleeve, should be good to go. So I went ahead and power washed this thing off, so now it's at least clean and we can see what we're working with here. So next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do, I'm gonna go ahead and take a power wheel. Well, I'm gonna take a scraper first, try and get this off, and then take the wire brush and just get this whole surface cleaned up. Okay, so this is all cleaned up now, and I just want to show you the new seals I got. One with Timken. I couldn't remember the brand when I was up at the truck earlier, but got a wear sleeve, and this is what it looks like. Same general thing that we used on the rear. So this is the actual sleeve. It slides over the crank. This is our install tool. Now as for the actual seal, so this guy right here. So this is your install tool, and just wanted to see depth-wise how this works. It just seems tight, so I'm not sure if it goes in. If you bang it in from the front, look at the back over here. No, you have to bang it in from this side. So I'm honestly wondering if this thing slipped out a little bit, because that does not look like the correct depth at all. Looks like it should be in here more. But this way, no, it's too far out that way too, so it's gotta be this way. So let's go ahead and knock this seal out first. Pretty simple, just gonna use a hammer and a flathead and just kind of knock it. Find the edge and just give it a few whacks. Hopefully not. Alright, so old one is popped out. Okay, so this is the old one. It does say Cummins on it, so it is a genuine Cummins seal. And this is the new one. So, yeah, so there's an arrow that points in the rotation of the crank. It's kind of hard to screw that up. Basically, this side goes out like this. Now, before we go ahead and toss this in here, we got to go ahead and clean this up. So, you know, that's interesting. It is, well, no, it looks like there's some in there. Yeah, so you're supposed to use red Loctite, or 554, I believe is the exact one. I don't know if I have that one or not. It's not going to be a huge deal. I saw someone use blue Loctite, which I think is hilarious, but hey, whatever. But whatever, it worked for him. So let's go ahead and do that next. All right, now so we got a thread locker here, thread stuff. I'm gonna wash my hands off a little bit before we start applying this, but I'm gonna go ahead and just apply it to this thing right here. And there was some on the old one as well. Just that very bright red stuff was. Alright, and this is where it gets fun. So, Go ahead and use this guy as something flat just to bang across the whole surface evenly. Alright, finally got it started. That thing sucked to get in there evenly, but got it started. So now we're going to set this on top, start hammering away. Alright, seems to be in even as far as I can tell around. Just get this ring out. Let's see now. Hopefully that'll work. Seems to be in there pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and pop out our center ring. I'm going to reinstall it in a second. You do need to have this thing in there when you're reinstalling it, but I want to make sure it's totally clean. I want to make sure this thing does get installed. It dries in both directions on the old one and written on the new seal as well. Alright, so now that that's done, let's head back up, clean up the sealing surface up there next. Alright, so it doesn't seem to take too much to get this going. I'm just using the hammer sideways and just tapping it on that way. So if you're ever curious what it takes to get one of these on, it's not too bad. You don't need a crazy amount of force or anything. So I gotta see exactly how far this thing's gonna sit on here first. I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to go all the way to the back, just in case it needs to sit on a little bit less than that far on. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned up all this gasket surface around here. Just used the wire wheel and had some stuff over top of the gears to keep them kind of clean. I went ahead and test fit the cover by sliding it over top, and you can actually look down behind it and see how far in this thing needs to go. So I wound up tapping this guy on just a little further, just to make sure there is no extra clearance issues, but I think we should be good to go now. So one thing I was curious about, I noticed, well actually I'm gonna start siliconing and I'll talk to you guys. So one thing I noticed that was a little interesting, I believe that the reason the front main was not quite set to the right depth is I have heard of people who will offset their gaskets a little bit. Whether this was done or not in the past, who knows, but it's plausible anyway. And what they'll do is they'll offset it a little bit. This way it doesn't create a single wear mark on the crank, it kind of evenly spreads it out a bit. So just a thought. So I'm gonna go ahead and silicone this guy up and then we'll get it squished on here. All right, so now the gasket maker's on here. So usually I'm not super keen on following the exact directions on how to put this stuff on. However, today that is not the case. So the way you want to get this stuff on here is get it on the crank. Let me get this thing set on here real quick and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. So the reason this matters anyway, you just want to get all these bolts in here about finger tight. According to the gasket maker, you stick it on about finger tight, and then once they're on like that, you go ahead and let it sit for an hour before you torque these things down. So I look up the torque spec, but I'm going to go ahead and get all these bolts in here pretty much just loosely tight like that. And it's something to do so you don't press out all the gasket material, I guess. Pop that guy off, and yeah, so should be good there. Looking at it, so you guys might not be able to tell on the camera. Let me bring the camera down there. So as you can tell right in there, see how that you can still see the crank saver, or the wear sleeve, and then the gasket over top of it. That's what you want. You want to make sure it's just like that. So I think we have pretty good placement on there. So I'm going to go ahead and get these bolts in here, and then we'll let it sit for an hour, and then I'll get back with you when we figure out what the torque spec is. All right, so we are now down to, it's been about an hour, and I'm going to go ahead and torque all these guys down. So a pretty little thing I read that seems to make sense. Let's look up the spec, but if it's 10 millimeter, then it is if it's 10 mil, then it's 18 foot-pounds. So got our wrench set to 18 foot-pounds. We're just going to kind of start There we go, one, and just go all the way around. And I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up real quick. The order doesn't really matter. The cover is not really a hard cover, so like if I push here, it's not gonna affect anything over there. So you can just kind of go around and it'll be fine. That's done. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is pop on our actual crank. I went ahead and cleaned it up a little bit so it looks at least a little more presentable so you can see what it looks like. But grab our crank bolt and basically just set it on. Start twisting it down. Hopefully you guys can see in there all right. It's one. Just gonna get them started, then I'm gonna use the ratchet. Hopefully we'll be able to get this thing going a little easier. Sweet, so I'm gonna go ahead and ratchet these guys down. They get torqued down to 92 foot-pounds. Probably gonna wind up having to use the ratchet strap again, just to hold it down in place. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these guys in next. So next up, we're gonna go ahead and put our fan pulley back on and just kind of slip on in, same way it came out. Went ahead and wire brushed it and repainted it just to kind of keep it looking decent anyway. So I'm gonna use these guys to kind of hold it in place. And then you can totally just take off these bolts holding the pulley on to get that last bolt out. It is not by any means critical to leave it on here. I just didn't feel like it. And I already saw a couple videos, people just doing it the other way. So didn't really think about it while I was while I was doing this. So it is what it is. But yeah, just a heads up. So these are also going to be 18 foot-pounds, same thing as the other ones. And then I'm just going to use the open-end box wrench side to get this guy started, hopefully. And just get this guy in. All right, so I went ahead and used the regular ratchets to get these bolts on tighter. And then I ratcheted the strap around the pulley again, the balancer, whatever. And we got to crank this sucker up to 92 foot-pounds. 92. These birds are loud as crap in the background. Sorry about that. Can't do anything about nature though. All right, and just because there's 4 of them, I'm just kind of doing an X pattern. All right, there we go. Balancer torque back on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this strap off and then we'll go ahead and put on the belt next. All right, belt's on. Took a second to get that thing routed right. I guess next thing we can go ahead and do is pop on this guy right here. And went ahead and JB welded this back together because I'm an idiot and broke it when I was taking it apart. You can get replacement canisters, they're not super expensive, but well, they're kind of expensive, like 60 bucks for one of these suckers. So I'll just set that over here for now. It's just a vapor canister, so it's not a huge deal to me anyway. Now that's done, I did notice this is cracked too, so we got to be careful about that and make sure our hose goes all the way on. It's not good. But now at that time, we're going to go ahead and get our radiator shroud in here. Went ahead and got the so when I got the fan shroud seated in here, GoPro's acting up so I didn't catch it on camera, but same way it went out. Pretty easy to get in, you just got to finagle a little bit and kind of work it back and forth and you'll get it. So now that's in, you put in our 4 10 mils that go on each corner over here. One here, one there, and 2 on that side. And then I'll come back with you once we get the fan on. All right, so fan shroud's back in. Next thing we're gonna go do is toss the actual fan itself in. Just kind of feed it in here. I did get some more bolts for the back, so nothing's gonna be coming loose. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll get this back together. Hopefully one more leak taken care of. Next up, we got to knock out the rear main seal, so that should be going on later this week. And then hopefully we'll be good to go for driving some long distance drives without losing all of our oil. So that's the plan. But without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. Okay, looks like everything's back together. I got to top off the cooling system a little bit because I drained some out of here. In all reality, I should be able to pull that out of the reservoir once it gets running, and then I'll just go ahead and top off that when the time comes. Other than that, there's a zip tie that goes here that holds this fan shroud back against the radiator so it's not this giant gap. Gotta grab one of those. Another zip tie for the bottom down there for my catch can tube. Other than that though, pretty much back together. Gotta wait 24 hours for this seal to totally set. With the silicone, they have other stuff that's faster. I believe the right stuff is a 1 hour sealant, but it is what it is. I just wanted to use what I got and it should work out just fine.